This happened when I was studying full-time and working part-time to survive. I was in my early 20s, juggling lectures during the day and bar shifts at night. The place wasn't a club, it wasn't loud or flashy either, just a quiet neighborhood bar. Dim lights, old wooden counters, and regulars who came more out of habit than joy. On weeknights, the bar felt tired. That night, I wasn't supposed to work late. I had an exam the next morning, but my manager asked me to cover the closing shift. I needed the money, so I stayed. By 10 p.m., the crowd had thinned. Only 3 customers remained, all sitting far apart. The music played low, almost like background breathing. That was when I noticed him. He hadn't ordered much, just water. He sat at the far end of the counter, never touching his phone, never looking at the TV. Every time I glanced his way, he was already looking at me. Not in a flirty way, not aggressive either, just attentive. At first, I brushed it off. Bar work teaches you to ignore strange energy. But then he said my name, softly. I froze. I hadn't introduced myself. I asked how he knew it. He smiled and said, "You wear it on your face when you're tired." That answer didn't make sense, but it also didn't feel like a joke. A few minutes later, the other customers left. The door closed behind them. The lock clicked automatically. It was just me and him, and the bar suddenly felt much bigger. I started cleaning to make the time pass faster. Glasses, countertops, receipts. He stayed seated, didn't move, didn't blink much either. I told him we were closing soon. He nodded but didn't stand. Instead, he asked me a question. "Do you ever feel like you disappear when you're tired?" That question hit me harder than it should have. I laughed it off and told him he needed to leave. He stood up slowly. When he walked toward the door, I felt relief rush through me, until he stopped halfway. Without turning around, he said, "You lock yourself in places without realizing it." Then he left. The door shut. The bar was silent again. I locked up, turned off the lights, and stepped outside into the cold night air. That's when I saw him across the street, standing under a streetlight, watching. I walked the opposite direction, pretending not to notice, but I could feel his presence behind me. Not footsteps, not movement, just awareness. When I reached my apartment later that night, I checked my phone. There was a message request from an unknown account. No profile picture, just one line. "You made it home." I didn't sleep. Over the next week, strange things began happening. Customers asked if I was okay, said I looked pale. My manager claimed I had worked shifts I didn't remember. A regular insisted I had served him drinks on a night I was certain I wasn't there. Then came the worst part. One evening, I arrived at the bar early. The lights were already on, music playing. I assumed someone else had opened, but the place was empty, except for a glass of water sitting at the far end of the counter, full, untouched. I didn't serve that drink. I quit that night, stopped going to classes, stopped answering messages. I felt watched everywhere, mirrors, reflections, dark windows. Sometimes when I closed my eyes, I could smell the bar, old wood, alcohol, cold air. I started dreaming of standing behind the counter, serving no one while someone waited patiently in the dark. This is where things become unclear. According to my family, I survived. They say I was found wandering early one morning, barefoot, several streets away from the bar, disoriented, unable to explain where I'd been. I never went back to work. I transferred schools, moved cities. But here's the part that keeps me awake. Former coworkers claim they still see me. They say a girl who looks exactly like me sometimes works the late shift, quiet, expressionless, pouring drinks without speaking. Management insists no such employee exists. And the bar, it still closes late. Sometimes when someone stays too long, they say a young woman warns them softly, "You shouldn't lock yourself in places like this." I don't know if that's me, because I'm here, but something else might still be there, waiting.
I didn't think much of the place when I moved in.
I just needed something cheap and close enough to campus that I wouldn't spend half my stipend on transport. I had just started my master's in global marketing and communication. New country, new academic pressure, new everything. The apartment came up through a local listing board, not online, a printed sheet taped crookedly to a notice wall. No photos, just an address and a number. When I called, a woman answered immediately, like she had been holding the phone already. She asked only 2 questions: how long I planned to stay and whether I worked nights. When I said yes to both, she told me to come the same day. She lived alone in a small apartment building that hadn't been renovated in decades. The hallway smelled like old paint and something sharp I couldn't place. She opened the door before I knocked. She looked older than I expected, but not fragile. Her eyes were clear, alert. She spoke carefully, like each word had been chosen earlier. She showed me the room, then she showed me the kitchen, then the bathroom. She did not show me her own room. When I asked about guests, she said none were allowed. When I asked about noise, she said she was a light sleeper. Then she added something that felt unnecessary. At night, doors should remain unlocked. The house doesn't like resistance. She smiled when she said it. I told myself it was a cultural thing. The rent was low. I said yes. I worked evenings at a bar not far from campus. Nothing fancy, mostly students, a few locals, regular faces. That's where I met my girlfriend. She used to sit alone near the end of the counter, never on her phone, just watching the room. We talked after my shift one night, then again the next week. Then she stayed late on purpose. She noticed things, about people, about timing. She said it was a habit she picked up from studying behavior. That made me like her. Living in the apartment felt normal at first. Then I started noticing small changes. The kitchen utensils were sometimes rearranged. The chairs were never exactly where I left them. The hallway light flickered only when I walked past her door. I assumed she moved around that night, but I never heard footsteps. What I heard instead were patterns. A soft tap, a pause, then another tap, always in threes. I began waking up at the same time every night, not from a sound, just awake. My phone always read 3:17 a.m. I would lie there, staring at the ceiling, feeling like I had missed something important moments earlier. Once, I swear I smelled smoke, not burning, prepared, like leaves dried on purpose. In the morning, the smell was gone. My girlfriend came over for the first time after about a month. The old woman stood in the hallway while I introduced them. She didn't say her name, didn't offer a greeting. She looked at my girlfriend's hands, then her throat. That night, my girlfriend barely slept. She felt watched, not from the room, but from the space above it, like someone standing where the ceiling should be. In the morning, she found the thin powder along the base of my door, gray, carefully poured. When she asked me about it, I realized I had stepped over it every morning without noticing. After that, things escalated. I would come home to find objects placed where I hadn't left them, always closer to my room. A cup from the kitchen, a book from the shelf, once a photograph of me from the bar. I never remembered being photographed. I confronted the old woman. She listened politely, then said, "You're becoming aware too early." That sentence stayed with me longer than it should have. The night everything ended, I came home early. The apartment felt different, not tense, expectant. Her door was open. I didn't intend to look inside, I just did. The floor was marked, not randomly, intentionally. The walls were covered with notes, dates, names, phrases I recognized from conversations I had never repeated. On a small table sat a stack of papers, lease agreements, all signed. Different names, same handwriting, same room. Mine was on top. Behind me, the door shut, gently. She didn't raise her voice when she spoke. "You don't move through places," she said. places move through you. I didn't argue. I didn't run. I walked out. I didn't pack, didn't quit my job properly, didn't finish that semester. I live somewhere else now. Different city, different apartment. But sometimes, when I come home late, I unlock my door and find it already unlocked. And for a moment, I hesitate before entering. Because somewhere in the back of my mind, I still hear her voice. The house doesn't like resistance.